enough? Is everyone hearing me?
Yeah, you are loud and clear.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Today's webinar about understanding WIBA 2007. At Liaison, we are risk management driven, and we have a risk management philosophy that we believe that risk management is an integral part of our client's strategic and operational objectives to enhance value creation and protection of assets and human resource through loss prevention and cost-effective risk transfer mechanism. And so before even we advise our clients on the best suitable solution for their risk transfer, we help them understand their risks. And so today we decided that apart from, we know we understand what is its benefit, but there's current changes in the operational framework and how when an incident happens, the claims are registered and processed. And also we wanted to help our clients understand the roles of an employer and the employee and how they can reduce the operational and legal risk with regards to any incidences of work-related injuries to their respective employees. And so for housekeeping purposes, feel free to write your questions in the chat box. In case you have a question during the presentation, you can raise up your hand and ask. And I request us all to keep muted so that we can have a focused discussion. And without much further ado, to help us understand this better, we are honored to be joined today by Madam Maureen Karago, a seasoned claims specialist at Liaison Group Insurance Brokers. Welcome, Maureen.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I hope you can hear me. Please confirm.
Yes, you can hear you.
Yes, so today we are going to delve deeper onto the WIBA Act 2007. So what does WIBA stand for? WIBA stands for Work Injury Benefit Act of 2007. This is an act that was passed by Parliament in the year 2007, and every employer is required to have a WIBA policy in place to protect their employees in case of any injuries that occur at the workplace. So which are the bodies that govern WIBA? We have the Directorate of Occupational Safety and Health, which stands for DOSH. You'll hear me mentioning DOSH as we proceed. Another body is Occupational Safety and Health Act, that is OSH 2007. So this is the brainchild of the WIBA Act, the Occupational Safety and Health. Also, we have the Factories Act that also guided this bill in Parliament, and also the Ministry of Labor and Social Protection. And in terms of judicial protection of the employees, we have the Employment and Labor Relations Court. In short, it's written ELRC. So these acts govern the WIBA Act. So we are going to go through the benefits under WIBA. A minute. Yes. So why do employers take up a WIBA policy? One, it's for legal compliance. This is in line with the WIBA Act 2007. It's mandatory for anyone who is operating in Kenya and has employees to have the WIBA policy in place. This helps mitigate any legal risk and non-compliance fees and penalties that are charged on any employer that doesn't have a WIBA policy. Another benefit of taking up WIBA insurance is employee protection. This ensures that all employees receive financial support for medical expenses, rehabilitation, and loss of earnings due to any work-related injury or illness. Another benefit of taking up WIBA is peace of mind. Employers and also employees gain peace of mind knowing that their employers have protected them on the job and potentially building morale and productivity at the workplace. Financial security. Employees and their families receive financial support in case of any work-related injury or disability. It covers medical expenses, disability that may be permanent following an injury at the workplace. Reduced financial liability for employers. As you've seen, this is a mandatory cover. Therefore, if you don't take up this cover, then financially you have the burden of paying your employees if they get injured at the workplace. So this reduces the burden of litigation following uncompensated work injuries. So what are the minimum covers under WIBA? So for death, every employee is covered up to 8 years earnings. For permanent disability, 8 years salary. For temporary disability, which is in layman's language, the CCOFs, so an employee can take up to 1 year off duty recovering from an injury, and this will be compensated by the WIBA policy. Medical reimbursement up to 30,000, and also a last expense in case of death of a minimum of 30,000. So I'm going to show you how the benefits are computed. For the death benefit, I've mentioned it's 8 years earnings. So we take your salary, multiply by 96, multiply by 100%. I've given here an example of someone who is earning 30,000. So if you're earning 30,000 and you get injured at work and you end up dying, then you're covered up to 9 years. That is 30 times 96, giving you 2.8 million. Note, for employers, you are required to declare the salaries to conform with the actual earnings, so that in case of an injury, a death injury, then the beneficiaries can benefit in full. If you don't declare the correct summary, the correct earnings of the employee, then this will reduce the benefit. Another benefit is permanent total disability, which we put in short PTD. So this one is guided by an award by a medical doctor, and also there's a continental scale according to the WIBA Act. For example, I've given here, if an employee gets injured and they lose their index finger, the schedule awards them 4%. So the salary multiplied by 96, multiplied by the percentage for that specific injury. So for this example, 30,000 multiplied by 96, multiplied by 4%, you get 115,200 shillings. I request those who are not muted to mute kindly. The other benefit is temporary disability. This is the CCOFs. So this aims to compensate the employer for any lost man hours spent by the injured employee to recuperate. So if the employer is paying you a full salary, despite you being away at home recovering, then this benefit goes to the employer. If the employee is deducted any amount, then this benefit goes to the employee. So the example I've given here is if an employee is injured and they are away, they're given CCOFs for, let's say, 3 weeks, that is 21 days. So we take the salary, multiply by 21, divided by 26. The assumption is that we have 26 days, working days in a month, minus Sundays. So that's how we arrived at 26. This is guided by the Act. So you get 30 times 21 divided by 26, you get 24,230. So in order to be indemnified in full, the employees are required to submit any CCOFs so that the employer can then be reimbursed for the time they spent away. recovering from a work injury. Another benefit by the Act is the medical expenses, a minimum of 30,000. So your employer can negotiate with the insurance to have this minimum enhanced. Some employers have up to 500,000 medical reimbursement. So that is optional, but the minimum as per the Act is 30,000. So the benefit here is actual cost incurred out of pocket, meaning it is not paid by SHA or any other medical insurance. So any cost that you incur out of your pocket as an employee due to a work-related injury is covered by the WIBA policy. So it covers dental, optical, surgical, hospitalization, skilled nursing services, supply of medicine, surgical dressing, supply of artificial limbs, clutches, and any other appliances for the disabled. So a note here is that you need to submit the original receipts for you to get the reimbursement. So it's on reimbursement basis. So you have to incur the cost and then now you claim from your employer. Another benefit is funeral expense or last expense, a minimum of 30,000. This can be enhanced by your employer as they wish, but the Act requires them to have up to a limit of 30,000. So in case of death, your beneficiaries, your dependents will receive 30,000 to assist them in the burial preparations. So a note here is that employees should nominate their dependents and update the nomination when necessary. These are the children, spouses, parents, step-parents. So you need to declare your next of kin so that in case of death at the workplace, they receive the 30,000. Another benefit is occupational diseases. This is guided by a physician. So if a physician gives you a diagnosis of a disease and he attributes it to work, the work that you're doing, then it is covered by WIBA. So up to 8 years earnings. So he will do a review and then give you a percentage. All payments under this benefit goes to the employee. And also there's an exposure clause that applies, meaning you are exposed to elements and it was unavoidable. So your employer is required to give you PPEs, conduct trainings and supervision to ensure that you're not exposed to these elements. Also in insurance, there are a few elements that are excluded. We have pneumonia is excluded, asbestosis is excluded, silicosis is excluded, STDs or venereal diseases are also excluded. So any other element, so examples of elements that I've given here are, we have TB, we have mercury, lead, poisoning of any element. It can be manganese element, those lab chemicals. If you are exposed to them, then you are eligible for compensation under the WIBA Act if you contract any illness from them. So this is open apart from the few that I've mentioned which are excluded. If you have any question as we proceed, kindly drop it on the chat bot. Also, the exposure clause means that these elements you are exposed to are in line with your job description. So you can tell us that you were exposed to mercury and your line of duty, there's nowhere where you interact with mercury. So the doctor will give a diagnosis and also your supervisor will confirm that in line of your duty, you are indeed exposed to that element. So for WIBA cases, they are reported online via a portal. This portal is accessible to all HRs, I think, and finance people. So it varies with the employer. I don't know who has access of your online portal, but from that portal is where you're supposed to report any incident at the workplace. And these are the forms that you will be required to fill and submit to your insurance company so that they can compensate you for any injury. So the first form is DOSH Part 1. This one is filled by your HR. The next one is DOSH Part 2. This one you will have to print and then you give it to your doctor so that they can do an assessment and give their award on PTD and TTD. DOSH Part 3 is for fatal cases where the office will nominate the dependents. DOSH Part 4 is filled by the DOSH officers. They compute the benefit and give an award. DOSH Part 5 and 7, these are proof of payment and settlement of a claim. So once this form is filled, it means the claim has been paid and it is closed from the DOSH files. DOSH Part 12 is an appeal of the award which is done on DOSH Part 4. So in case your insurer is not satisfied with the award that was given by a doctor, they can make an appeal and do a second medical review to ascertain the percentage. So if your doctor gives you 20% and your insurer feels like 20 is too high for that specific injury, then they need to do an appeal within 60 days of the award being issued. So here is the procedure of appeal. So within 60 days of issuing the DOSH Part 4, any aggrieved party or the objector may file an objection via the DOSH Part 12. The appeal is reviewed and the reasons or the statements therein given are reviewed by the DOSH office. The DOSH office will do a hearing. Sometimes they even send the claimant to a clinic. They have a clinic. So the claimant is re-examined and then the appeal is reviewed and a decision is made. So the decision is either to vary the award or uphold the award. And then the reasons for that varying or upholding is given and a copy is given to the parties involved, that is the insurers, the claimants, and the employer. So they will receive a copy within 14 days. After 30 days of their objection, the decision has been made within 30 days. If you don't pay, then that matter is closed in terms of DOSH. And the next step maybe is to go to the labor courts. If you feel that you are still not satisfied, then the DOSH process is done, and then now you have to take it in court. Let's review some of the duties and rights of the employees. So every employee should ensure personal safety and health at the workplace. If there are PPEs and guidelines and manuals that are provided at the workplace to conduct any procedure, they're supposed to follow and utilize the gears that are given. Employees are supposed to report any hazardous occurrence at the workplace to their supervisors, HRs, or the management, or even to the DOSH office. So they can go straight to the DOSH office and report a hazardous occurrence. But we don't advise them to go straight to DOSH. You need to follow the escalation matrix. Employees are supposed to minimize hazards, e.g., they are supposed to maintain good behavior, avoid practical jokes. Some people do pranks. You can't prank someone at the workplace. Some pranks may lead to injuries. Attend training such as fire drills, first aid, etc. Avoid any legal contradictions. So any crime that is conducted at the workplace and it leads to an injury, it's not covered since it's illegal. Novice personnel are supposed to follow supervisors' instructions. So if someone is new at the workplace, they need to be supervised to prevent any injuries at the workplace. If an employee claims compensation, they should provide the necessary proof, that is the medical records, sick-offs, receipts, etc. within reasonable time. When required by DOSH or the insurance company, they should avail themselves for second medical opinion by a designated doctor. And then they should lodge a claim within reasonable time, as soon as possible within 24 hours for fatal cases. So for death cases, the HRs are advised to report immediately on the portal. and for the other cases, within reasonable time. Duties of an employer. An employer is supposed to comply with the OSH Act, that is Occupational Safety and Health Act. It has various guidelines relating to fire, relating to dangerous elements. It has so many guidelines. So an employer is supposed to follow the Act on Occupational Safety and Health. An employer is supposed to provide conducive and safe working conditions. In cases where the employees are supposed to use plants, machineries, and any other system, those machineries should be inspected, examined, and well maintained to reduce hazards. An employer is supposed to register as a workplace with DOSH. An employer is supposed to send notices of any occurrence via the portal, that is the link to the portal, doshmis.go.ke/DOSH. In your free time, maybe you can open that link and see the mandate of DOSH. They carry out audits, safety trainings, inspections. Randomly, they can just walk in at a workplace and do inspection. And if you are found liable, then you can receive fines and penalties. An employer is supposed to ensure that no employee is discriminated for lodging any complaint with the DOSH office. Ensure no deduction of earnings for items that are provided for under the OSH Act. For example, the PPEs, you're not supposed to charge the employees for that protective gear. An employer is supposed to have a health and safety committee. This is a committee that meets every quarter, and they discuss any incidents regarding to safety in the workplace. An employee should conduct health and safety education, trainings, audits, medical examinations annually. Maintain a register, certificate, permits, and any other records for the purpose of OSH and WIBA compliance. So in your free time, kindly, if you're an employer, you need to go through the WIBA Act, their guidelines, and also the OSH. They have their own guidelines and required documents. An employer is supposed to maintain an insurance cover to compensate any injured employees for any injury or diseases contracted at the workplace. An employer is supposed to promote the best OSH standards and culture, such as waste management and pollution. So they should have a culture that encourages health and safety. An employer should label and clothe, guard, fence any dangerous machines or facilities. They should also mark the fire escapes and disclaimers for any hazards. You can see the picture there in yellow. So if there's a wet floor, you need to give a warning there so that an employee doesn't slide and injure himself. Also, if you have LPGs, they should be enclosed, and any other hazardous machines. An employer should also settle claims within 60 days to the employee and 30 days in case of death to the dependents. So this act does not recognize insurance. The duty lies with the employer. So if you don't have insurance, then they assume you're the one who is supposed to settle the claim. So as we've seen, WIBA has so many benefits, including injury and occupational diseases, but there are few instances where a WIBA cover that you take with your insurance will not respond. Some of the exclusions include deliberate injuries, any disease or injury to an employee who is below the age of 18. So you're not supposed to have employees who are below the age of 18 years. Unreasonable failure to follow medical advice and any other pre-existing medical condition. Any injury by accident or disease sustained outside Kenya. So if you are deployed outside Kenya for more than 6 months, then you need to have a WIBA policy for that country that you will be working for. So the cover for Kenya will not cover you outside Kenya. Liability that is not provided for by the WIBA schedule. So if there is a percentage that you are trying to claim and it's not on the schedule, or a disease that is not on the schedule, then the WIBA policy with your insurance may not respond. Contractual liability or liability to employees of your subcontractors. The few elements that I mentioned are excluded: pneumonia, asbestosis, and the likes. Suicide or attempted suicide is not covered. Even if it happens at the workplace, it's not covered by your WIBA policy. Accidents due to drugs and drug abuse. Service in the military forces. The military have their own cover. So if you have employees who serve in the military, then the WIBA policy will not cover them. Racing, hunting, professional sports, mountaineering, and any other hazardous activity is not covered by WIBA. It is assumed that you took, it was deliberate exposure to danger. Motorcycle above 250 cc's are not covered. So if you get injured on a speed bike, you are not covered by the WIBA policy. Mental illness and nervous disorders and venereal diseases are not covered. Pregnancy, childbirth, and related complications are not covered. Aviation risks are not covered unless you are a passenger. So if you are a pilot or cabin crew, then they have their own special cover. Terrorism, war, invasion, nuclear weapon, radioactivity, sabotage, political risks are not covered. However, political risks can be extended at an additional premium upon request. So we can go to the chat box and discuss some of the few questions that you have. If you have any question, you can also raise your hand.
Thank you, Madam Maureen, for the insightful session. I will first begin with the questions in the chat box. And I will read all of them. Maureen, you can note for response. The first one, is it the compensation? Is it minimum 30K or maximum? On the temporary disability, what happens when the patient has been discharged from hospital but still not able to resume work as his physio sessions are still ongoing? Meaning that the employer is not able to get the hospital sick offs despite the staff still recuperating from home. Does this mean one can be paid more than 30K? I think it's the same like question one. The other question, in PTD computation, where does the 4% come from? The other question, and what happens when the incident or accident is not reported on time due to the insurer's fault, where with the insurer who is underwriting the policy is to be attached while reporting, but insurer is just to be submitted. I think is reporting to DOSH timelines. And what happens when the patient is declared to have become permanently disabled? The other question, clarify when an employee is on sick off, that is 5 months, and to continue pay him. When the employer claims WIBA, is it a reimbursement or is it paid to the sick employee? And are there separate payments after sick off? That is, where employee was injured on his way to work. The next question, kindly confirm if there is a timeline to visit the DOSH offices after the incident or accident. Do these duties of an employer apply in domestic settings too? I will answer the last one. Yes, as long as you're an employer at home, and maybe having a house manager or cleaners or workers at home, duties to employer still applies, and that's why we have a policy called home insurance or domestic package. it has a section that covers domestic workers. There's a section 4 for WIBA that covers those employees. So you can, this is suitable, transferable to home insurance or domestic package. Yes, so it means the duties of an employers do apply even in domestic settings. Welcome, Maureen, to respond to those other questions.
Sorry, I was on mute. So for the first question on the minimums, so these are minimums guided by the Act, but your employer can choose to endorse their cover for higher limits. So this is the bare minimums as per the Act, the 30,000 for medical and 30,000 for funeral benefits. So it's left open, but the minimum is 30. The other question on the sick offs, you've said an employer has been discharged but still cannot resume job to work, so you're not able to get the sick offs. So this policy ensures that all the benefits are paid after the claimant is fully recovered. So once they return to work and they resume normal duties is when now you will compile all the sick offs and submit for compensation. So they can take as much time they need to recover. The minimum is 1 year, but you can also have an endorsement to your policy to cover them for up to 2 years, which is 104 weeks. The other question on where I got the 4%. So on the WIBA Act, there's a schedule on the PTD percentage. So I gave an example of losing an index finger. So that's how I arrived at the 4%. But now this is guided by a medical doctor. So a doctor, most doctors, they know the scale. So once they review you, they will give a percentage depending on the medical history, the current status, and if there's any future complications anticipated. Maybe I can share this schedule, the continental scale. So this is how the scales looks like. So for death, it's given there 100%. For other injuries, loss of hand and foot above the seams, amputation 100. If you get bedridden permanently, it's also 100%. Injury to limbs, there are percentages given there. So this is what your doctor will use to give you a percentage, this scale. For eyesight and hearing, this one is guided by also a medical doctor, but for eyesight, there is also a table on how to award. So they check the acuity of the eyes. So you can see here, if your best eye is 618 and the other eye is okay, nil, then the percentage given there is 40. So this is guided by the scale and also by your treating doctor. That's how I got the 4% for index finger. Let me show you. That was here. If I lose an index finger, 1 phalange, that is the top part. You see a finger has 3 phalanges. So if I lose 1 phalange, I get 4%. If I lose the whole index finger, that is 3 phalanges, I'm awarded 25%. The other question was on timelines. So you are required to report an incident as soon as possible within reasonable time. And if you report it late, the Act gives you up to 1 year to report. So according to the Act, you can report even within 12 months. But for insurance companies on their policies, they will have their own timelines. So they normally request that you report any incident within 7 working days. For fatal cases, according to the Act, it's 24 hours. And according to most policies, insurance policies, it's 48 hours. So this one is guided by the Act and also your insurance policy. They will define the timelines. The other question was on, I've answered the first 4. If you're injured on your way to work. So this cover covers you while on the clock. So you are 8 to 5. If you're an 8 to 5 person, it covers you within the 8 to 5. So if you get injured when on your way to work, you're not covered, you require a different cover called GPA. So your employer should take up GPA so that they can cover you around the clock, 24 hours. I've covered the timelines. Injured on your way to work. Maybe Faith, you can tell me the others.
Okay, thank you, Maureen, for those responses. There are additional 3. In case of a bad incident and the staff's bill goes beyond the insurance amount, then the employer pays the additional bill for the sick staff. Can the employer recover this amount from the amount paid to the staff by WIBA? The second one, how does the WIBA apply to seafarers injured on board ships? In brackets, their employment in contractual. So they are employees under contract, but they're on board on ship. Does WIBA cover that? We note that mental illness is now a serious matter in the current workspace. Suppose an employee who is already diagnosed is at while they are having an episode. How will this be treated? The fourth one is WIBA Plus equivalent to GPA, covering employees 24 hours. And the last one, can employees sue an employer who hasn't taken up WIBA?
I will start with the last one. Can an employee sue an employer who has not taken up WIBA? No, it's not your work to sue them. If your employer, you report to them and they are not compensating you, you are allowed to seek compensation from the DOSH office. So you report to DOSH. DOSH will now force your employer to compensate you. And in case the DOSH process is not successful, then you can go to the labor courts. Yeah, so you can't sue them before exhausting all the other channels, which is the DOSH, which is a body that deals with matters, employee injuries and safety. The other question on, is WIBA GPA, is WIBA Plus equivalent to GPA covering employees 24 hours? So WIBA Plus is a combined solution. It combines WIBA and GPA, so hence the name WIBA Plus. So WIBA Plus covers you 24 hours on the clock and outside duty. The other question was, what if an employer settles the medical bills on behalf of the employee? Can they recover from WIBA? Yes, they can. So this benefit for medical expense, if the employer catered for that, then the benefit, the reimbursement will go to the employer. So you need to enhance your policy limits. So if your policy is the minimum 30, then the insurance company will only compensate you for the 30. So you need to enhance your cover up to the limits you're comfortable with. Does WIBA applies to seafarers injured on board ships? The employment is on contract. So WIBA covers you at the workplace, that is the physical premise, and any other place where your employer may direct you to work. So if it involves you being on board on a ship and you get injured on the ship, then you're covered. The other one was, so even if your employer gives you a directive to work from home and you get injured at home, then you are covered. Mental illness. Yes, we agree. Mental illness is now a serious matter in the country, and we are still having conversations with the insurance companies to have this exclusion removed. So far, we have been successful in terms of life insurance. So nowadays, life insurance covers mental illness. So if you die out of suicide, then you are covered. But as of now, WIBA does not cater for this. But it's an ongoing discussions. So what it elaborate the differences between WIBA and GLA? They tend to confuse most people. So WIBA covers the accidental risks, that is in case of an accident at the workplace and or in case of contracting an illness at the workplace. GLA is group life assurance. This one covers the natural risk. Maybe you got an illness or you just went to bed and never woke up, then that is life. That is GLA. But WIBA is for occupational, accidental diseases at the workplace. So GLA is a life cover. So for those exclusions that I mentioned, some will be covered under GLA. There's another question on employer's liability. So for WIBA, anything that is on the schedule, the provisions of the WIBA Act is covered by WIBA. But in case an employee takes you to court, that is the Employment and Labor Relations Court, ELRC, then the employer's liability cover will cater for the expenses for the liability at the court. So WIBA covers you outside the court. Once the employee takes you to court, then the employer's liability cover kicks in. So you need to have both to protect yourself fully. Please comment on compensation for permanent disability. It looks inadequate. So this is a standard scale that is used by the WIBA to award permanent disability. But if you have medical records and diagnosis from your doctor and they give you a higher percentage and you can argue that and to the satisfaction of the DOSH office, then you can be compensated as per your doctor's advice. This is just a guideline. Is there a timeline for reporting an employer's liability claim? So for any liability claim, once you receive a demand or a summon that you've been taken to court, immediately you need to share with your insurance company so that they can send an advocate to represent you in court. So if you respond to that summon or demand letter without involving the insurance, then you prejudice their position to defend the matter. So they may, in totality, refuse to take up the matter. So the timeline is as soon as possible, and also you are not required to respond to the other party without involving the legal people. We will share the notes after the presentation, and I think the meeting was being recorded. At what permanent disability percentage should guide the employer to retire the sick staff on medical grounds? So WIBA does not, so if I give you a percentage of 50, it doesn't mean that now your employer should retire you on medical ground. The retirement should be guided by a doctor. So if you go to your doctor and akwambia, I can't give you any more sick offs, actually now you need to stop working. So it's guided by a medical doctor. It's not guided by the WIBA disability award. Also, after you've been compensated for any disability, you can get a PW, the persons with disability certificate. So they have their own assessment different from the WIBA. So if you need that certificate, there's another assessment on the other side. A follow-up question, we will share our contacts. Any other question? You can unmute yourself and ask if you don't want to type. The last question from Patrick. If the medical expense is more than 30, the employee should foot the extra medical cost? No, not really. If the employer, if it's a work-related injury, then the law, according to the WIBA Act, requires the employer to foot the bill if the employee is not able to foot. And then now they're supposed to have an insurance in place to reimburse them for that cost. So if it's work-related, the 30K is the minimum as per the Act, but you can endorse your cover for higher limits. But regardless, it's the responsibility of the employer in case of any injury to provide medical aid. The last question on DOSH. It is the responsibility of the employer, not the broker. So the employer will have to register with DOSH as a workplace and also get the necessary permits and certificates. As your broker, we can only provide you, if you need advisory on the process, we can advise you, but the responsibility lies with the employer. Yes. Thank you for your time. I'll hand it over to Koki.
Thank you very much, Maureen, for that insightful presentation and taking us through understanding WIBA. I know we are now more informed and knowledgeable on the same. And in case of any inquiry or further guidance, please feel free. You can contact us and email us at riskadvisory@liaisongroup.net. We will guide you accordingly, suitably to specific questions or inquiries.
Support reliable
Masti, you've raised your hand. Yes, you can unmute and speak kindly.
Thank you so much, Faith, and thank you, Maureen, for the very insightful session. I have a question in terms of, so this is the WIBA, but there's also the WIBA Plus, right? Which covers employees even in outside work. And according to my understanding, it's 365 days a year anywhere in the world. So my question is, WIBA has to be legally, there's the arrangement of covering up to 8 years in case of death or in case of a total disability. But when you merge that with the group life, for example, it increases those years because the group life also has its own number of years that the compensation can be given in case of death. So is there a maximum number of years or minimum number of years that should be covered in case of a combination of WIBA Plus and GLA? I hope my question is clear.
Yes, Masi. So we have those employers who take up WIBA Plus and also they have a GLA cover. So if they're separate covers, then the employer can benefit from both of the covers. There's no limitation on that. But if you combine the benefits, there are GLA covers that are combined with WIBA, then they may give you a maximum benefit. So they will give you the benefit under WIBA and life up to a certain limit. But if they are separate, then you can enjoy both benefits from the two covers.
Oh, okay, thank you for that. So according to your expertise, which one is best? Is it best to combine WIBA and GLA or to have them separately?
So for WIBA, since it's mandatory, it needs to be on its own. Then these other additional benefits that you give your employees, then it's up to you. So if it makes more sense financially to combine, then it's up to you. But the keynote to note here is that WIBA is compulsory.
Yeah.
So whether you combine with GLA or not, you need to have WIBA in place. Yeah,
I
so
hear
you
you.
can weigh the benefits, maybe in terms of premiums. If you want to pay less premiums, we advise you to combine. But if you want the maximum benefits for your employees, then you can
Yeah.
separate. Yeah.
Okay, I hear you. Thank you so much, Maureen.
Hello. Nĩndandĩka.
Thank you, Mercy.
Ndandĩka. Ndakwandĩkĩra gũkwĩra nĩ thengiũ tondũ nĩ wathire ĩyo.
Is it advisable for employers to employ on short contracts, 3 to 9 months, to take GLA insurance cover? So once you take a GLA cover, a group life assurance cover, it runs for 1 year. So if you can afford to take it, then well and good, because it covers you for 12 months. So if they are on contract, the law requires that you have the WIBA. So the GLA is an additional benefit that you're giving to your employee. Yeah, so this is up to you. But yes, we advise you to include them onto the contract for GLA, since it runs for 1 year. So after the end of their contract, you can send in a deletion. So they are removed from cover, and maybe now you can onboard others.
Okay, thank you, Maureen, once again for that insightful presentation. Thank you all for attending today's webinar. If you have further questions, kindly interact with us further through riskadvisory@liaisongroup.net. We'll be able to specifically address your pain points, and it was a pleasure having you. Thank you. See you again in another webinar. Bye.